commence business. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. Honorable members, in front of us we have the agenda for the Finance and Public Accounts Committee meeting with regards to the consideration and adoption of the final accounts of Management Development Institute. Without any, if at all there are no corrections, can I have someone to move the motion that the agenda be adopted without amendments?
Okay.
It has been moved. Any seconder?
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded that the agenda for the Finance and Public Accounts Committee be adopted without amendments. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. Good. Madam. Any motion that the honorable member from Madura release? Thank you. We would like to once again welcome the board and management of the Management Development Institute. And we would also like to recognize the presence of the external auditors, that is Hard and Co, and as well as recognize the presence of our subject matter specialists and the personnel from GPPA and the Office of the Auditor General, as well as the presence of all honorable members of the FPAC committee. Since we are all here yesterday, so the need for introduction have already been fulfilled with the exercise we conducted yesterday. And then we would only like to gently remind you that you are still on the oath, and today we will proceed with the consideration of the financial statements of the Management Development Institute. First, what we will do is we'll look at the financial aspects, and then as well as the governance and compliance issues. And as they come up, members will intervene and then pose the relevant questions. The rationale behind the exercise is to bring the system as it is obtained, so that concertedly we can work on remedial actions where they might be necessary. So the first question would go to the accountant with regards to the fixed assets register. Of course, the external auditors have noted that a proper fixed assets register was not maintained, and that one, depreciation was charged on the total fixed assets cost instead of the various classifications. So what we would like to know is, what was the rationale behind that? Was it a change in policy?
Okay. Thank you. My response on that matter is, while there is insurance for all the class of fixed assets at the Institute, the documentation as per established accounting procedure for fixed assets register is not fully implemented. Fixed assets are tagged, but the continuous update of the register reflecting all required details such as depreciation figures and policies are not implemented. Management has taken note of this observation, and it is addressed in the updated accounting manual, and this is recently finalized pending ratification and adoption by the board.
The question is, was that the policy in-house or was it received in policy?
Come again?
Was that the policy in-house to charge depreciation on the total cost instead of the previous classifications, or was it received in policy? That's what we want to understand.
Anyway, it's not a shifting policy. This is what we have been doing for quite a while, and this is how what we agree on with the previous auditors, that the depreciation, we will charge the depreciation simply because we are not having the updated fixed asset register as stated by even the current auditors. So we're working on that. We have taken note of that, and then we will try and then shift to what the auditors require from us.
So which means currently you will be charging fixed assets, not on the total cost, but based on the various classifications.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Now, the question will go to the external auditors. With that shift in policy happens, what are going to be the implications with regards to the comparability of the financial statements?
Thank you very much. Just to clarify on the point, what happens is if you look at 2019, they have a closing balance of fixed assets per category. So what they will do is the new additions during the year, they will add it to the opening cost balance and then charge depreciation on the total closing per category. But when you realize that if you continue to do that, some assets are there, they may have been fully depreciated, but you'll continue to charge depreciation on them. But we cannot see that because there is no proper register that will show you the individual assets per category and depreciation charge on that. Okay. In terms of the rates they are using, that has not changed. Okay. The depreciation rates are still the same. It's just that they're charging depreciation on the totals per category instead of on the individual assets. Now, if they work on the fixed asset register, which we will definitely be emphasizing moving forward, because this audit is in arrears, even if they do a verification, develop the asset register, you will not be able to know what obtains in 2020. They can only tell you what obtains now. Okay? So if they develop the asset register, they can actually see the assets they have at the moment, and that register would actually be accompanied by a valuation. Yeah. So the valuation would tell them the carrying value of the assets they have now and the remaining useful life of those assets. So they can actually have a clean sheet that they can actually move forward with. But at the moment, it's impractical for us to know what obtains in 2020 in terms of which assets were existing and which ones were not. Okay. But what we are emphasizing is for them to do evaluation and develop the asset register properly so that depreciation can be calculated as required.
Now, what is the status of this asset register as
Currently, before the fixed asset register was under our procurement department, but we have now moved the fixed asset register from procurement office to the finance department. That was done currently this year, the beginning of this year, by the advice of our our internal auditor. So now the account will be the one responsible for the fixed asset register. Then we will try to make sure that we update it to the standards.
The fixed asset was maintained by the procurement.
Yeah, before. Yeah.
That was before 2022.
Yeah, before 2022. Yeah.
Up till the end of 2021.
Yeah, up till the end of 2021.
And the procurement unit is responsible for the purchase of items.
Exactly.
Both the operating ones and those items of capital nature.
Exactly.
They are also responsible for receiving those items before dispatching them to store. So, Council, we don't we see that there are conflicts involved in that process?
Of course, yes. That's why when we appoint for the first time the internal auditor, when she came in, she advised us to move the asset register, and there may be some kind of conflict of interest there. Then yeah, it was implemented right from the spot. Okay, the management take the bold decision to move the asset register from the procurement department to the finance department, and that has already been done in 2022.
We approach the decision of management to separate the two. Because as alluded by the auditor, moving forward, the only thing that we have to do is what is going now. For anything that happens in independent pillars cannot be established. So the question is, as the finance and admin manager of MDI, what mechanisms are you in place? Or how were you substantiating the fixed asset register by the time by the personal to ensure that all the assets of the organization which were of reconciliation were recorded accurately?
Yeah, yeah. Since then we have a register. We have a fixed asset register, though it's not up to standard, where they record all the assets. We still have that one, and that's what we even use to move for any time that we buy any assets. The procurement department will record it in their fixed asset register, and then the amount involved and even the depreciation, though it's not up to standard as alluded by the auditors. Yeah, but we have a register where where the procurement department record all the fixed assets that we bought in that particular year.
So which means you cannot say for sure that those fair period value truly reflect the fixed assets position of the institution as it was obtained during this period.
Of course, yes. We can say they are all obtained by the institute because the record is there. Since even the previous ones, the previous records, they were all there, available there. Any fixed asset that the institute bought, they are all recorded. They are all recorded in that asset register. And we normally even give it to the auditors as they come in any year. Though the fixed asset is not updated, or sorry, is not up to standard, but all the records are there. The fixed asset register is there, and then all the records are available there. So there is nothing missing there.
You know, in our analysis, we all agree on something. That when it comes to capacity, the management development, we are all start to say that we are products of MBI. So it means you have the capacity. Capacity is not a problem here. We have the capacity. So that is why when it comes to standards and evaluation, you'll go the extra mile on MDI because we expect that you should set the pace, whereas others will follow. So the question will still come back to you. What mechanisms are in place? One, to make sure that if at all there are errors, because you said it's not up to standard. The fixed asset register that was there was not up to standard, which means there were issues. How do we reconcile those issues? And prospectively, what mechanisms do we have in place now to ensure that the fixed asset register is up to date and it is also maintained accurately and on a timely basis?
Yes, as I said before, as I was on study leave for almost 2 years during this period, maybe there was some kind of lack of capacity in the department before, but now everything has I'm back, and then the account department has already been equipped, and also with the appointment of the new auditor in the first internal auditor at the institute, that one have really added so many things to the institute or to the finance of MDI. And as I'm speaking right now, we have in how to call the software that the MDI account is using now, called the QuickBook. That all the staff of the account department we are trained on, and then as of now we are having all our records intact, and then hopefully in 2021 you will see the difference.
Let's take a case in mind. Let's look at the issue of the threshold analyzation. Do we have any policy on that?
Yes, I think we are having a threshold on capitalization because when I even came in, we developed new accounting manual, and then that new accounting manual, which is yet to be, which is on ratification and it is yet to be adopted by the board. Okay, everything has been captured on that accounting manual, and that accounting manual has been drafted by me myself, with the help of the management. Okay, so it is only left with the board to how to call adopt it. Then we go.
Members, before you move on, do you have any issue on the fixed assets register?
Yes, just a cause for concern. So these things, their observation, the implication, and the recommendation. And based on the recommendation, a fixed proper asset register should have been developed. And we are being told that it's developed, but it is not up to standards. How can you tell us that it's not up to standard? And also, it's a bit disappointing that one would personalize an office so much that with your absence, there would be a lapse. Obviously, you were on study leave. What if you had dropped dead? It's like you are taking so much responsibility, personalizing the office that, okay, I was away on study leave, that is why, but rest assured, now I'm back. I mean, this is an office, it's not an individual. So somebody should have stepped in. And also, it's recommended that depreciation should be completed on an individual asset basis. Is that also being done? Because as we speak, we are not seeing that there was a gap, and we are being told, are you the auditors? We are being told that it is not. There's still a gap, and this has been since 2020. So what do we expect? Do we expect the same?
I just want to diffuse it a little. When the word drop dead was mentioned, I can see. Just take it on a literal way. It doesn't mean it that way. Okay? It's just to say, okay, this is an office, and then it's a public institution, it must be independent from the personnel. But the question goes to the finance and admin manager.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the reason why I have said that is we are trying to move how to call from the manual to the how to call from the accounting system, from the software accounting system. Okay, and then the institute MDI is mainly to build the capacity of their staff. I was not the only one there, even before. Okay, I was even a junior staff there before. Okay, I was trained by the Management Development Institute, and as I have come through them, and I have learned a lot. Okay, and then they are the one who even sent me to go for that capacity building training on my masters. Okay, so when I came in, that is the time that I tried to develop some of those things that are in place. I think that is the only reason why I have even mentioned that I was on study leave. Other than that, it's not personal. Okay, and then I have not. I was not even the one heading the department before.
Thank you. Now let's work on deliverables and then put this question to the deputy DP. And accounting manual has been developed by the finance and admin unit. And obviously, the rationale behind it is for operational efficiency. And we all strongly believe that if at all it is implemented, many of the deficiencies being highlighted in the management letter would become a thing of the past. But according to him, it's still waiting for validation. When can we expect the accounting manual to be validated?
Yeah, good morning, or good afternoon rather. As he said, yes, a manual's been drawn, but the procedure is to have that manual approved by the board. So we've been waiting for a board meeting to hold for that manual to be approved, to be sent, to be forwarded to the board. At the operational level, we have looked at the manual, we have reviewed and corrected it. So it's just to be passed by the board before it can be in place.
Then we can move to the board. When do we expect the manual to be approved?
Yeah, I think as far as we are concerned, the Board of Governors, we have not got any signal from management that the manual is ready validated. And when we are notified of such, we'll convene urgently and go through the manual because board will always do that. Any document they prepare after doing their internal validation, we also have our time to go through. We did that with the scheme of service after their internal processes. Board had a whole day session to also go through and look at all the provisions, and we made suggestions for changes. So this time also, when we get the notification that the manual is ready, I think we both will meet to actually go through the manual and approve it, maybe from amendment as may be feasible sometimes. Yeah. Thank you.
Deputy DG said they are waiting for a board meeting. Now the question is, what is the institutional policy with regards to board meetings? What are the theory requirements? And when was the last time you had a board meeting?
Yeah, we are supposed to be meeting quarterly, on a quarterly basis.
When was the last board meeting?
The last board meeting was sometime in January. This quarter, second quarter, we have not met. We have not met yet.
You have not met yet?
Yeah, no.
And the second quarter will end in 2 days' time.
Yes.
Do we agree or conclude to say that the issue is not a managerial issue, but a issue of governance? But obviously, because there are no board meetings, management cannot do anything anymore. And we know when the board can continue immediately to look at the accounting manual and approve it.
Yeah, we'll meet as soon as the managing director, director general rather, has informed me that currently they are on recess, and as a result of it, he took his annual leave to travel outside the country. But as soon as he is back, the board should, because as we said, I was even saying the board meeting was due. We have not been able to meet, and as soon as he is back, we will convene a board meeting.
Can he delegate?
Well, he can delegate. We can meet in his absence. That in his absence, the deputy director can assume that role of managing director general.
Since the law is clear on that, then
Yeah.
we will encourage you to raise with the deputy director and then work on the board meeting as soon as possible.
Okay.
So that you can approve the accounting manual for its immediate implementation.
We take note of that. Thank you.
Thank you. So the external auditors, do you have any observation on the assessments that you might like to share? You can compare on the current status.
The current status remains the same, but what I would advise them to do in addition to our recommendation is just to ensure they do the verification and the valuation. I think that should be the starting point. Then they can reconcile back to what they have in their books. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, what about that?
Yeah, you just mentioned that the current state of the when you were in this report, it's dated 31st of December 2020, and we are in 2022. So that is a cause for concern. Is it the same as at now 2022, or is it the same as at when this report was
Okay. Okay, to the external auditors, that's a question for you.
I have not seen a fixed asset register, a proper one, as we speak today.
So it's the same as we speak now. So So it's the same as we speak. And this recommendation was done in 2020. So does it mean that MDI just ignored the recommendation and just proceeded as normal, or what steps have they done to try to improve and implement these recommendations since 2020?
Madam Honorable Njai, the accounts of 2020 were just audited about 2 weeks ago. The MDI had to change auditor, external auditor, after the expiration of the previous one. And this new auditor was just appointed in February. We had to go through the procedures with Department of National Audit, and the procedures are sometimes slow. So the new auditor was just appointed in February. We had to go through the paperwork, and the audit exercise was just completed about 2-3 weeks ago. Yes. So the accounts were prepared and waiting to be audited. And equally, can I also say our accounts of 2021 have almost been completed, also waiting for auditing. So that's the procedure. It was slow, it was delayed because of the appointment of the external auditor.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think this is the problem that we will still be delivered by them. We are in 2022, yet, and the law states that audit report should be, if you can guide me, 3 months after the year end, and we are saying 2 years in arrears. So I think this must be stopped. Otherwise, we are still clinging onto problems that should have been rectified in 2020, and they've just been identified. So obviously, we will be living in the past. I think we need to make a stop to this, ensure that accounts are audited and presented on time, so that we will pick what needs to be done on time. We are not living in 2020. We are in 2022.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jack. Honorable members will recall that was the first touch this honorable committee came back upon. And we worked on an engagement time frame. Because when we came in, we realized that there were some institutions who are as far back as 2012, 2013, 2014. Honorable Jack, we are together, right? So we recognize the need that the current position of the government should be known, so that key decisions can be taken. Are you together? But if we take MDI and compare it to other institutions, we might like to rate them around, if not A, but B+. So what we will do is, as a committee, we'll make sure that what we agreed on, the timeline, doesn't expire. All government institutions have to submit their accounts of the current year, come 2023 or come 2024. But without a time frame, we won't achieve it. Of course, you are very right. If we have to deliberate on prior issues, which are of the recent past as far as 4 or 5 years, then who do you hold accountable? That's the status quo we find ourselves. We'll have to deal with it. But to MDI, the question is this. You have an accounting manual, and the board have been tasked now to approve the accounting manual. So we would be waiting for the next audit report, and by the next audit report, we'll be there to evaluate the operational efficiency of the accounting manual, in terms of seeing whether there'll be some reoccurring audit observations as highlighted in this current report. So at the end of the day, if at all you have any challenges with regards to the convening of that board meeting, we would like to know, because right now it's an act of the committee that the board meeting be convened. So, and we expect that that act will be respected. So we'll move to the revenue now. Okay, we'll start with the board chair. From the board chair, then we'll come to DG1. No, sorry. You would address it to the chair.
Yeah, okay, Chair. Okay, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Contributions are not continuing.
Okay, I understand. Like, we are trying to make a clarification of the fact that 2022 is not being reported upon. And since the auditors gave us this recommendation 2020, for 2020, we have since done some adjustments in line with their recommendation, because we have moved the assets management from procurement to accounts. That was as per their recommendation, that there is conflict of interest for procurement to continue to handle that. And the accounts is also working on to actually do a proper classification of these assets. So the auditors are not talking about what's happening now at 2022, because we are making adjustments to ensure that this asset register is properly updated, as well as the fact that this has been transferred, the management has been transferred from procurement to accounts, to ensure there's that kind of separation of duties and responsibilities. Yeah.
Thank you. But Honorable Njani's response was premised on what the external auditor said. The external auditor said that he have not seen an improved financial, fixed asset register as now. Which means she was trying to conclude that, as reported, the situation on the ground today stands as it is reported in the management letter. That was what the external auditor said. He said he didn't see any improvements as of today. So that's why for us, we are recognizing the fact that you've made significant steps in developing an accounting manual, which will change the whole operations, and there'll be a high degree of accountability and transparency. So the implementation of that accounting manual is the actual change that the committee seeks to see. To DG1, Deputy DG Ran.
Mr. Chair, I just want to respond to the point raised about having our accounts up to date. I just want to say that sometimes it's beyond the institution's control, especially where it involves the hiring of an external auditor. It's a process which involves an external body, that is the Department of National Audit. So, and again, it also involves the issue of affordability on the side of the institution that is hiring the auditor. So all these things, take time. And like I said, these accounts of 2020 should have been audited if there was an external auditor hired at the time, because they were ready since. It's just a process. But now that we have an external auditor going forward, this external auditor is here to stay with us for the next 5 years before a change or a change in auditor. So we hope such a situation of being in 2022 and having to report on 2020 will be resolved. That assurance we want to give to the body. Thank you.
Do you have changes with regards to hiring external auditors?
No, we don't have. We have number of clubs are now increased. It's not a big problem in terms of hiring auditors for institutions.
What was the actual challenge?
Usually it be
for MBI.
I cannot recall, but generally, most of the time it's about the fees, the charges of the auditors. The institutions are usually not able to afford, and we have to go into negotiation. Of course, we don't like those negotiations because it also has its implications. Yeah,
but most of the time the issues will come back to us to say that they want to have a fee negotiation with the audit firms. Of course, when they make lower payments, perhaps the quality of audit also will be compromised because also they could not offer those services. So there are a number of issues, but largely it's about those things. We have increased the number of years from 3 to 5. Formerly it was 3 to 5 years to reduce the administrative time and costs for the National Audit Office, but also to comply with international requirements. International now most of the time it's 5 years. Yeah, largely it's about these fees and whatever. But of course, the issue also will also have their problem. Again, I'm talking general terms in terms of the completion of their accounts. You know, the audits will have to be, as you can see. That's why you have these areas. Not because the auditors are not available, but because the institutions are not ready with their accounts. Because of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. What would you add?
Yeah, I think it's clarified because the change will increase the time from 3, I think, to 5 years. I think that would clear the gap. But also, when we are talking about cost implications, we all know the expectations of accountant fees. So that should be factored in your budget as well. So I think that should not be any issue. But like you've mentioned, the time as well. Because if you have to change, you know that every 5 years you have to get new auditors, so you must be well prepared. But we, as a committee, we are expecting timely reports now, even if they are not ready. We just want everything to be tabled, and then, like we agreed, we go and report to the plenary, because we will not be wasting the time of taxpayers waiting for completed audited reports. Whatever is done, let them bring it, and we'll go and report to the plenary as and how it is. I think going forward, that was what was agreed at committee level.
Thank you, Honorable Judge. Honorable members, any further observations?
This one is
But if you
inefficient
have,
collection of tuition fees.
very good, then start it from you preempted where we are directed. You can
Yeah, with the inefficient collection of tuition fees, as the end of the financial year, under review, it is stated that tuition fees receivable amounted to certain amount, which is in the box, of course. A review of the balance shows long outstanding amounts. There is a recommendation from the audit. I realize that management should ensure timely collection of tuition fees to avoid financial losses. What are they doing as a management? What is the management doing to avoid these losses? Or do you have any other strategy to different from that of the auditors? Auditor's recommendation to avoid these losses?
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yeah, if I can answer that question. Our tuition fee comes in two folds. That is on our regular fees, on our regular programs from students, and on our short-term programs, which is the tailor-made programs that we organize for the public sector, private sector, and NGOs. In terms of the short term, I mentioned some of the challenges that we are facing, where institutions would owe and not pay. We have written to them several times, sent invoices. I can quote one institution, a ministry, that owed us over $1 million, or let me say two, in the accounts of 2019. So that's on short term alone. On the regular programs, what we do is we send students. We've been putting up strategies of sending students home, denying them of exams, or withholding their certificates until they pay. We later came to realize that withholding certificates it's not very effective, in the sense that students would just study and go, and would only come and collect their certificates if there's a need for it, for instance, promotion or seeking for job and so on. So this past exam, what we did was We sent them the notice. We said, you're not going to be allowed to. And we tried to enforce it. And before, it paid off. It paid off in the sense that you see a lot of students come in and try to meet up with their payments before the exams. So such strategies would work. Also, I mentioned about our encounter with IT Consortium that proposed to set up a student management portal, which hopefully would address our problems on tuition fee collection. But then we would need the support of the assembly or any authority that can help, for ministries particularly, to understand that services have to be paid for. And that would help MDI in its processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any supplementary questions for that? Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say this concerning about the training. Like you said, 2 different trainings, something like tailor-made training. And most of these trainings are done by the ministries and other NGOs. So do you have a special mechanism that you use in place so that maybe before you conduct the training, at least they can do some kind of, advance payment? Because these are institutions and they have the resources. This is why they want to at least bring their people to build. Because right now, we all talking about capacity. Whenever they come, I think there should be, because organization to organization. So, and at the same time, we would love to have a list of those institutions or ministry or departments that owe you, so that we can also support you to recover this, because the amount here is just too much. Yes, please. So, and because I understand the way you normally collect, because I was there, you have to get the clearance certificate, you go to the library and whatever. But I think you should think about a proper mechanism wherein at least if you should go into such situation, it will not affect you that much. Because sometimes students will come and they will just pay first installment, finish. So, and I think this is a big amount, 15 million, that's too much.
Mr. Chair, to respond to that question, I think the 15 million, the total debt or the debt started building up from 2018 going to 20. I know, but I'm talking about the significance of the amount from 2018 to 2020. That's where the amount really, came up high. I appreciate that from 2014 to 2017, they were outstanding, but we can look at it as, below 1 million. So what we have now done in terms of the institutions, we inbuilt their training allowances, particularly institutions that would have MDI paid transport allowance to the participants. We would not release that transport allowance or training allowance to the participant unless and until the payment is received from their institutions. So those are mechanisms we have used. In terms of our regular programs, you'll be surprised that most of the sponsored students by their institutions are the ones that don't pay. So that's another challenge. Again, we're talking about the institutions. I am glad that you have you've requested for us to give you a list, which we are happy to, and hopefully that would help in the debt collection. I personally took 2 invoices to 2 ministries, to their permanent secretaries. Up till now, not a single butut has been paid, and those are over 1 million, going 2 million for services that were rendered in 2019 and 2018.
When can we have this?
Tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, Director. So are there no other legal avenues to recover those debts from the institutions? Or do you want to take them as bad debts?
Mr. Chair, the efforts that we have taken, and me personally taking those invoices, shows that we don't want to write them off. And now that we're in this room, getting your support, I think we may not want to talk about legal, ways of collecting it. And if we should, it also attracts cost. It attracts cost, it's time consuming, and so on. And how many government officers, officials or ministries have been taken to court for that collection? It's difficult to take your partner to court. So all we could do is just to negotiate and then manage the debt for the collection. That's what we have been doing. It's good that you are suggesting that, but we've never thought about that, to be honest. We thought we were partners. If we're bold enough to do that, we would be happy to, because the effort that has been put in is too much.
Thank you. Is it on the issue faced by him?
With the legal actions against those who are in the ministries already, I think taking a legal action would be the best idea, because as you started, I think other ministries will get afraid to try such action. I think it is important for you to do something about it. Take legal actions against them. Really, it is. Try start. Just start with one, and then that will be a good idea of stopping others to try.
I hope we will lose them for the services.
I'm interjecting. I'm not giving the floor now. Let me interject. I think we have started a healthy engagement. We are partners in this. It is one government. Of course, we all recognize the need that government ministries, departments, and agencies must live up to their obligations. But that's why we have the separate arms of government. That's why we are also here as parliamentarians together. We should not, at first sight, tell MDI that go and do it on your own.
Excuse me, Chair, but they're not helping.
No, wait.
Let
me learn. I didn't give you the floor yet, Honorable Member. Let me learn. What we do is, let's have the list from MDI. Deputy Director, let's have the list by tomorrow. So when we have the list, we'll go through it and be rest assured that this committee will add its weight on your institution towards the recovery of the outstanding balances. And we will ensure that the ministries who are owing you live up to their expectations. Because looking at your aging debtors, you realize that 13.6 million out of the 15.16 million was incurred during the last 3 years. That's significant. That is really, really significant. And if you also compare the value of outstanding debts to the total revenue that MDI generates, you realize that it is a significant chunk of your strength that is lying out there. So now, how do we make sure that we ensure a swift and efficient mechanism of recovery should be our collective stand. And I believe this committee have the powers and the mandate to do that. We are supposed to be the bridge between you and other line ministries. And be rest assured, we will perform that function fully. Yeah, but moving forward as well, we expect you to have an in-house mechanism when it comes to recovery. You know, how do you address the situation? How do you address it? There must be an in-house mechanism. You know, did that come to the attention of management? And if yes, what modalities are in place to make sure that that gap is really addressed? I would give that to the Deputy Director.
Having a computerized student account information system, it's one way, and we're learning from our other tertiary institutions. That is the University of the Gambia. And I reported that when we received the proposal from IT Consortium, we had to consult people in the accounts department of the UTG to find out what was the cost of them having a portal which allows students to only register for the services after payment. And we found out that the proposal we received from the IT Consortium, it's much, much reasonable. So going forward, yes, we want to put that in place, and hopefully before the end of the year, we should have a system which would only allow students to register and use our services, have access to our services upon payment. So that's one way of handling the regular program students. Yeah.
What status are you on that procurement process?
They have submitted the proposal, and again, it's we have to look at the budget. We have to go into negotiation on payment terms, because it would be very expensive to just make a lump sum payment. So negotiation of beating the prices and so on. So, like I said, the proposal has been received, and then we'll engage them. But target date, hopefully by the end of the year, we should have it installed, up and running.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Honorable members, we have further observations on the issues of the tuition fees. If not, I'll make a recount of what we've resolved. Okay?
I think
Honorable Guy?
also, yeah, sorry to worry, but I think also MPI needs to come up with a more, I mean, a more assertive approach. Because for me, for my own example, I have students at the MPI, but then you also have to be following for invoices. I think they also need to be sending reminders, because most people are quite busy. And maybe even the ministries, some of them, if they know that they owe, they might pay. So there should be some alerts that they should send, because MDI is a good institution and we don't want it to die. It is our duty also to support them, to ensure that they are subvented by also the government, because it's an institution. This country, we are a young nation. The youthful population is the majority. So we also need to safeguard their livelihood. So we are urging for MDI to engage us, even when they do their budget. It happened before with the UTG. You've seen how we've subvented for them to continue with their scholarship fund, because they wanted to cut it off. But we stood our grounds to make sure that at least scholarship fund was provided for UTG. Likewise, MDI we should also do the same for MDI, to safeguard the interest of our nation, and extension, our youths, our children, because they need to be educated. For me, I would prefer MDI to UTG, because their learning standards are, to me, that's my opinion, are higher than the UTG. So I think they need our support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Deputy Director, I think that's refreshing.
When you do your budget, I think they should engage us so that we can take it to the Ministry of Higher Education, so that they can also be factored, rather than just factoring UTG. MDI is also a national tertiary education, so they must be factored like UTG is factored in their budget.
Those are very relevant points that the management of MPI should know. And when the time for budgeting comes, make sure that you engage the FPAC of it. And then, as highlighted by Honorable Guy, our core mandate is to make sure that we move to partner with agencies, ministries, towards the improvement of the common good. And internally as well, you've made some relevant observations, which should be noted, and then the in-house institutions will be verified. But for actually existing, we believe that you can do it. But on the side of the committee, the rest of as you have alluded, you will always be there to support them. You want to say something to that before we go?
No, I just want to say we appreciate. Thank you. We would take note of that and involve you more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Also, to me, I think with the development of a computerized system with foreign institutions can be developed in the country, which is less costly, I think. Are you thinking of that?
We will, because that was also one comment that the Director General mentioned, that we should look around and see who can do it. We've had relationship with Nifty. They built our website, and there is an ongoing student information system or staff information system. So yes, we'll look at that as well. We'll engage them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will refer you to page 6 of the management letter. It states two points were noted by the external auditors. One was that staff were paid telephone and fuel allowances, whereas official vehicles were given to them, which were funded by the institution, and again they were given postpaid mobile phones. So in short, what the external auditors are noting here is payment for services were given. So that's, we want to know the policy governing that one. Two, of course, we've seen the management response to the audit observations, but we would also like to know how is it obtained as of now. So the first question will go to the DJ, the deputy DJ, with regards to the staff fuel allowances and the staff telephone allowances. Why the applications independent?
Flex. You can go to this one.
Mr. Chair, since inception, I hate to say this is how things been going on, because we should always move from how things been going on to best practice. This is the first time such has been brought to our attention. We have a scheme of service, a condition of service, or terms and condition of service, and that's the policy that we follow. And of course, in building our payroll, we have taken note of this point, and then we would look into how other institutions are dealing with such situations. But this has been since inception. The payroll has not changed much. It's the DG and the deputy DG that is given those vehicles. So, but we would look into that. Like I said, it's never been brought up. We'll look at that.
In the absence of that, it will encourage management, even though they recognize the need that they have to learn from other institutions so that we can apply best practice. But normally, payment for services are derived from the need and the relevance of such services. So if at all the organization is incurring an expense in respect of a service, then a substituted service should not be hired at an additional cost. So, but we believe in the competence of the management, and we also believe that the service scheme will be revised, just like how utmost attention was given to the accounting manual. We believe that you will subject the service scheme to revision. One, to enhance it. We are not here to demotivate the staff. No. Maybe after the revision, you realize that there might be certain gaps which can even come as increments. In as much as you would like to have increments for motivational needs, we would also like to see that duplicative payments are eliminated for efficiency purposes. So we hope that by the next audit exercise, such would not be reflecting on the management letter. So in the absence of any other one, the next topic will spend some time. It has to deal with fuel management. So first we'll get to the accountant to tell us how it is obtained at MDI as at now, so that together we can try to improve on it. Take us on a walkthrough.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The fuel management, like all of the fixed asset register, was under the review of the procurement department before. So, and then with the appointment of the the facility manager, now this thing has already been changed. Now we have someone who is totally responsible for the fuel management, and then he's the one that do the register for the fuel, and then the distribution and how everything should be registered in the as alluded in the scheme and condition of service. Before it was under the procurement department, but now has been moved after the appointment of the facility manager for the first time. Then it has been moved to the facility manager. He's the one responsible for the fuel activities.
Can you elaborate more?
Mr. Chair, with regards to fuel, there is always a significant risk of misappropriation. I wouldn't shy away from using that word. And it's a concern if a proper register to document the coupons procured is not in place. Periodic reconciliations are not carried out, and those reconciliations review. In addition, I'm glad that we have an internal auditor now. We should be conducting periodic checks, on informed checks for that matter, surprise checks to ensure that what they have in the records is indeed what they physically have. Otherwise, you will have a gap, and before you realize what is happening, there might be losses to the institution. The other issue is the retirements. We know when you issue coupons to drivers, a lot of things can happen. The least you can do is to request for a receipt for them to retire. But if receipts are not coming forth, then there's a lot that could go wrong. So this needs to be addressed, and it should be followed up on a regular basis, especially by internal audit. Thank you.
Before opening the floor to the honorable members, do you have the internal audit manager or any representative from internal audit?
Yes, sir.
That's the example. Did you subscribe to the rule system? I will try to come under the list of rules.
He raised your right hand and repeat after me. I, Fatusar Dabo,
I, Pakistan, that
do hereby affirm that
do hereby affirm that
I will speak the truth,
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee plan. The internal auditor. What expedited strategies have been adopted with regards to the well management issue as highlighted in the audit management?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. This is the 2020 accounts of the fuel management of MDI. I came in January 2022. So what I met, as the records have mentioned, I've changed the situation of fuel collections for making the facilities manager to be escorting the vehicles to collect fuel, maintain it in a logbook, and keep the receipts for verifications and spot checks.
Thank you. Honorable members, right, you have any observations?
The issue of fuel management, I'm wondering how they were able to do the balance for their account. The coupons which were issued to drivers were not retired with receipts bearing the registration number of the vehicle. How were you doing that?
You give that question to the finance administration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, even before, as they are under the procurement, everything has been recorded. We normally record the amount of fuel that has been given to the procurement department is always recorded on the logbook, and then whoever is going anywhere, and then any driver that is given any coupon is always recorded, and then will be asked to tender the receipts after going to the fuel station to fill the tank. All the records were available there, and then the issue of reconciling, we always make sure that it is done before, or we always make sure that it is done before we give out any other supply again for the following month.
But that doesn't match with the audit observations. Because if you look at the audit observations of page in itself, it says that you cannot establish the running balances. If for all the total was there would not have been any problem with the running balances. And B also, it said that there was no retirement with receipts with regards to the funds we take to drivers. What you've said right now contravenes to what the external auditors are reporting. So can we reconcile it so that we can know where we are before signing it?
Yes. Before, as I said, before we don't have it in a proper way, because we are having a logbook that we use, that the procurement department use to write all the fuel coupons that are going out. Because normally, when we raise this payment, the fuel coupons will be transferred to the procurement officer. Then the procurement officer will do the distribution. Then at the end of the month, whatever he distribute to the drivers, okay, and then how much is left, then how to call will be communicated to us. But even normally, by the end of the month, the coupon will normally be exhausted, because this is what has been approved. That every month this is the number of coupons that we normally give out. So even if it is finished, we cannot give out anything until the end of the month. Okay, even if the fuel is finished for that particular month, if it is finished at the half of the month, we never give out anything till the end of the month, the time that we pay the salary. That's the time that we normally tender the coupons. So it is only done monthly.
Was the retirement done with receipts?
Anyway, the receipts are tendered. The receipts are tendered, but the retirement maybe is not done.
Then I will send this question back to the external. On what observations did you premise your conclusion that documentation wasn't complete during the time?
Mr. Chair, our conclusions are based on evidence that is presented to us. We share the draft management letter, and management have actually looked at it. If there is any observation that they do not agree, they have two options normally. One of them is to present the evidence, which did not occur in this situation. So as a result, we start by our observation.
Thank you. The final agreement at this point, what we need to do is let's accept the fact that there are challenges. Let's accept the fact that we do not have the proper system in-house to maintain the running balances. Then together, we can work on an enhanced one to improve the system. In the absence of that, we'll have lengthy back and forths, and we might be compelled to bring out the reality as it is obtained. But if we take responsibility and we give commitment for improvements, then we know that we have a shared interest. So, do we still want to stand by the submission that the supportive documents were complete and we were maintaining running balances?
Yes, I think you are not understanding me. That's what I was saying. We don't have a proper one. Definitely, and then this has been noted, and that's why there is a lot of changes when we appoint the new the internal auditor who has to shift all these things from the procurement department to the facility.
By which time does that satisfactorily answer your question? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really wanted to.
But like, can we request for any documentation to ensure that these changes have been effected? Otherwise, it will just be guessing. Like the Honorable Fubanyu Sal rightly said, there are lots of areas before we know that these changes have occurred. Maybe it will take us another 2 years. So why not we request for a document such as your fuel logbooks, what you have changed in those areas? Thank you.
Yeah, that is noted. Yeah, we can consider changes that we made for that of the fuel logbook. Yeah, that one is not a problem. It's noted, and then the changes can we can put the changes in article to you guys for you to see. Yeah, honorable members.
Okay, what we'll do to better enforce that and then feel more confident. We'll add it and committee level. Remember that we can stay disciplined there, have an interface with the management on the ground, and then it's just a proposal to honorable members. If that's more preferable than sending in documentation, let's evaluate the two, then we can agree on something. Yes, honorable.
I think this is the management. We need to also talk to the stakeholders, talk to the students, because we have management already.
Good.
We also need to know what the students need about the type of education they are getting, quality, and have a look at it. Even if it need be, I just need be. But then if it is planned, again, what is usually done in this country is that we plan a visit and people would be prepared, ready for you, decide on who you talk to. So I think you just pick a week and tell them that from this date to this date. Anyway, that is my thought anyway.
Okay, very well. Any other observations on the issue?
I just want to ask, when do you appoint the new auditor, internal auditor? Because it's like, it's from there you started putting in place a proper system of recording of sponsors or other things. So I just want to be clear. January 2022. So meaning before January 2022, there was no proper system in place as far as this recording of coupons are concerned?
No, it's still this year for 2021. We are all under the review of the procurement department. 2021.
Okay, then I will allow Madam Deputy to respond.
So, sorry, before that response, let's just hear the issue raised by Honorable Champ. So, what we will do is we requested documentation, okay, with regards to the fixed assets register and the fuel management logbook. So, when do we expect to have copies of that? Sent to the National Assembly. About verification. Then from there, we can work on an advanced engagement plan to make sure that the verifications are completed. When can we expect to receive those documents?
Mr. Chair, I have just consulted the principal compliance and internal audit. We confirmed next week Thursday. Next week Thursday, we should be able to bring these two documents.
Okay. Noted. Right. You wanted to respond to the issue raised by the leader, right? Deputy Director.
Sir?
Or you've done that already?
I beg your pardon, Mr. Chair. I missed that.
Yeah, I would say, on the intermediate point, and you were about to respond before I interjected.
Was that on the improvement in the management of fuel?
Yes.
Yes, I think it was already answered by the Director of Finance that there's been some improvements, and with the incoming of the internal auditor, and also changing rule from having the procurement senior head or the head of the procurement managing the fuel to the facilities manager. Yes, and I hope when the fuel coupon logbook comes in, maybe that will be evident that there's been some improvements.
Director General, we spent a lot of time on this issue just to underscore its relevance. Because as it is now, we will not be able to, one, establish whether there were any kind of losses with regards to the issue of the MDI. There was no proper management system. So as such, even if you want to do a reconciliation, there will be no basis. Listening to the finance and admin management, one thing was the right that the fuel management was left at the mercy of what visits and issuance. When we receive during the month, we give. Even if it is finished before the end of the month, we do not request. Which means it was not even on need basis. It was based on the volume that was there. And if you look at such system, it is only good that you improve on it, because even if at all the fuel supply that we were having was inadequate or insufficient, you will not be in any position to qualify it. So the improvements are not only there for control purposes, but they are also there for operational efficiency, because you'll be in a better position to make informed decisions. So we would encourage the management to really, furnish the National Assembly with the requested documents, and then if the need is there, to work on further verifications, the management of MDI will be informed. Honorable members, do we have any further observations with regards to, okay, Madam Internal Auditor?
The fixed asset register is not going to be ready by next week Thursday. Since it's 2020 and 2021, that is affected. For the fuel logbook, it can be available by Thursday. That's what I want to make clear.
We don't need the updated. Thank you for that information. We don't need the updated. We need it as it is okay.
Okay, as it is
As
okay.
it is.
Okay,
We just need this status quo.
all right, thank you.
If it was completely perfect, we would not request. We want to know how it is now. Then we can all make commitments towards its improvement.
Okay,
But thank you for that information.
thank you.
Thank you. Other members? So, Mr. Finance and Admin Manager, see the internal auditor, when they say that documents come with regulation. When the report comes, they must be there. Please, when the account manual comes, let's make all commitments towards it. Let's make all commitments towards it. We all believe in MBI, and we believe it will be the base seller. So, any other questions? No? Okay. The last one will be on issues of compliance. The lead and treatment of compliance. Of course, all of these are operational issues. They do not represent any loss in value. But again, we want to underscore the fact that the institution is one of that bears the highest integrity in this land. So we just want to know whether you have complications with meeting your statutory obligations. Because one, ministries are owing you. Now those debts are mounting. The National Assembly want to be with you to recover those debts. But here you are again. You are also defaulting in your payments. So it's like, pay them and then we pay you. Or respect your obligations, then we can tell them to equally perform their functions. But we'll leave that to you. Can you take us through and let us know what are the challenges you face?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As you can see, within the management data, this happened starting in March, and that was the time that the COVID-19 started, and Social Security has changed the amount of receiving payments. They no more take checks. Now they shift to bank transfer, direct bank transfers. So by then we have already prepared checks for them to be paid. Normally, when the day that we are paying the salary is the day that we normally pay our Social Security. We never we never get defaulted until Social Security have changed their mode of receiving their payment. When we have our checks, we took them there, and then they said no, they have changed their system. So before everything goes as normal, okay, that was the time that this delay happens. But since then, and then we have come with them to agreement of this mode of payment. Since then, up till now, up till today, the payment never get late. Thank you.
Thank you. So, which means we do not expect to have that as a recurring observation.
No, never.
Honorable members, any observation?
Yes, we can also request for the issuance of receipts to determine or to know whether payments have been effected. Because we are talking of Provident Fund, which is the last hope for workers after they retire. Okay.
Point good, but I will send that question to external auditors. Please finish that month. This should be a better decision. External auditors, can you advise me?
Yeah, these statutory reductions are standard audit procedures which we always check for every entity that we go to. So we rest assured in 2021 when we go in for the audit, we'll have a status update in this report telling you whether they have met the timelines or not.
Thank you very much. get to the finance and money, we'll take your word for it. Because these are money issues. And if at all issues emerge from it, they are easily verifiable. They are easily verifiable. So that shouldn't be a problem. So all we want is to see that MDI also as an institution respects the obligations it owes to other institutions and then the obligations it owes to its staff members. In the absence of further observations to those issues, we can look at the matters arising from previous audit works. We should be on page 10 of the management letter. Let's look at the 2019 subventions. It says we have observed a marked increase in subvention received from 19.5 to 29 this year. Total revenue expenditure for the period have also gone up exponentially from 66.4 to 84. Basis for this allocation is not clear as no budget was prepared or presented to the line ministry or appropriating authority to the fiscal year 2019 for approval and implementation. And the auditors have realized that the issue is still not resolved. So page 10 of the management letter. Page 10. So subvention, yes. To the Deputy Director General, can you kindly help us understand the circumstances surrounding this issue and why it is still pending?
Yeah, I would kindly want the Director of Finance to respond to this matter. Please.
Thank you. Director of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The changes in subvention was due to the fact that before we are under the office of the president, and then since we are now we were moved to our line ministry, they decide our subvention normally come through our line ministry. So they decide how much to give us. Sometimes you see this subvention will be fluctuating. Sometimes it will be increasing, and then sometimes it will be decreasing. I think that is the reason why there is inconsistency in the subvention from 2018 to 2019.
But when it happened, you didn't ask why.
Of course, we do ask why, but what our line ministry normally say, they are the one who decide how much to give, because there is no standard amount that is allocated to each institution, each tertiary institution. So it is the line ministry who decide how much to give. The government will give the subvention to the line ministry. So they decide between MDI, university, GTTI, and the like, the only tertiary institution how much to give them monthly.
But you must have prepared your internal budget and make a submission to the ministry, right?
Yeah, before it was like that. We normally prepare our bilateral budgets and then send them to the minister, but send them to the finance. But
specifically for this year, was that not?
no, what I'm saying is that before, that's what we normally do. So since the change of the system happened, the line ministry now will be the one who will access. Now we do rollover budget. That is to do about 3 or 4 years budget and send it to the Ministry of Finance. Sorry, Ministry of Higher Education. As compared to before we normally have this bilateral budget that we send to the Ministry of Finance at the end of every year concerning our subvention. But now it's different. Now, since they move all the tertiary institutions under the Ministry of Higher Education, they have a different system, different approach under this matter. So we'll have a whole budget that for about 3 or 4 years budget that will send to the Ministry of Higher Education. So they decide on what to give us as subvention monthly.
With a 4 years budget, which means we can make an extra of the annual budget of 2019.
Yes.
How does this figure compare to the budgeted value of 2019?
Well, as I said, this is the Ministry of the Ministry of Higher Education. They decide how much to give to each tertiary institution.
You understand that? Now we are looking at the standard. You know, you have a budget. You said you work on 4 years budget. So with 4 years budget, of course, you have the annual experience and then cumulative. So what we want to know is, you were given a specific value, let's say 29.
Okay.
How does this 29 compare to your internal budget? Your internal annual budget of 29. Was it like, was it low?
Well, it's always low. It's always low as compared to our budget. Subvention is always low. Well, for example, when you budget for maybe 45 million, then subvention will come under. But subvention never go beyond our budget.
But the auditors are saying that there was no budget.
Mr. Kiaman, may I allow Mr. Wakar Fati to answer that question?
No.
Did you subscribe to the no? Let's allow the
You can raise your right hand. I, Bubakar Fani, do hereby affirm that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm speaking on the basis that when on the year under review I was overseeing the department, the budget for ministries, departments, and agencies are prepared under the medium-term expenditure framework. And this medium-term expenditure framework highlights both your recurrent and capital expenditure that you need to spend over a period of time. And MDI being under the Ministry of Higher Education, it is a condition based on the government's program-based budgeting annually to prepare our revenue and expenditure budgets. We do communicate that to the ministry. And based on that, the ministries are giving cash allocations. Previously, MDI was allowed to be a budget entity. That is, we directly interface with the Ministry of Finance to defend our budget so that we can substantiate why we need a subvention or a capital assistance. But with the new government, they have realigned the agencies, i.e. MDI and other tertiary, back to the Ministry of Higher Education. So the Ministry of Higher Education designed the composite budget for the sector, and it is defended in their bilateral with the Ministry of Finance. And it is from there that they give them a composite amount of payments to subvented institutions. So those subvented institutions, it is at the discretion of the higher education to appropriate the global sum that is given to them monthly basis based on the cash allocation. So during this period under review, MDI was benefiting from operational support to finance our monthly subvention, but also we were also benefit from a capital grant that was used for the building of the AKJ block. So based on the cash allocations that is available to the ministry and given to them by the Ministry of Finance, they will decide how much will be given to us. So this account for the basis why there is disparity. So in most cases, what is budgeted is not what is received. And this is a systemic problem for the whole budgeting cycle of the government, because cash allocations are generally lower or higher depending on what is being given to the MDAs by the Ministry of Finance. So at that period, the auditors did not request this program-based budget from us. And when you review our management response that we did in that previous record, we did highlight that this document was not requested. And even if today you request it, we can give it to you, because we cannot get subvented without preparing our program-based budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
That was really helpful. Because at the end of the day, you must reach a conclusion
Yes.
with regards to the status of the operation. As you highlighted,
It seems we have minimal role to play, because at the end of the day, there was no activity-based budgeting, and it was at the discretion of the ministry to definitely see how much they believe you should receive. But that doesn't answer our question fully. So now what we need to do is we need to come up with an engagement plan that will satisfy the audit question and make sure that it doesn't resurface in the upcoming years. So we would propose that during the budget bilaterals, MDI, together with the FPAC committee, we would engage the Ministry of Finance and the Accountant General's office to further provide information with regards to this issue, which can be related to the external auditors to satisfy the audit queries, so that in upcoming years, we will not see it as still an unresolved audit query in your management letter. And furthermore as well, FPAC have realized the need that government ministries, departments, and agencies should be allowed to work on their activity-based budgeting, and they should be responsible. And at the end of the day, they should know how much is approved for them, so that it can help them in their various planning. So this will be implemented to the latter this year. So what we'll do is to encourage MDI as an institution to start your budgeting as of now, before
Is scheduled for exams today. I will pass that question, or the answer rather, to the compliance, because she did some work with the HR when she joined in January. As at 2020, 2020, I'm sure there's been some improvement with the incoming of the compliance and internal audit. Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, the personal file issues is as it is stated on the report for 2020 and 2021. When I came in 2022, that's the time I realized these shortcomings, so we have resolved them immediately.
They are resolved.
Yes, for 2022.
Do we say that we can also expect to have, is it a written policy or some of the steps that we've done in a summarized way?
Yes, it is in a summarized way, since we are also waiting for the board to approve certain things.
For the purpose of clarity,
Yes,
is it that it's still at policy stage or you've started the implementation?
we have started.
The implementation.
Yes.
So what are you specifically waiting on with regards to the board's approval?
The terms and conditions for the confirmation of the certificate of characters of staff.
That do we assume, or are we right to say that is a separate line item in the entire policy document?
No, it is not a separate line item, but the board members need to know the caliber of staff that are employed in the institution.
No, can you explicitly, let me just ask you that. Can you explicitly tell us
Yes.
what you've done to say it has been resolved? Can you tell us that?
I've been working with the HR on the job descriptions for the entire staff. We need to have the personal data of the staff in the personal files, birth certificates, for example, passport photos, and even staff numbers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm concerned if you say character, certificate of character, because in this country we don't have records like criminal records or even accredited records. So how can we justify character, certificate of character? Is it personal? Do you just look at somebody, or how do you determine that? Because it's quite, I mean, we've seen government officials, and if I say I call most of us, including myself, they are corrupt. So if they should go to MDI now, what character would they be given? Because come on.
Thank you, Honorable. You allow me external conditions.
So maybe the terminology we use should have been revised. What we intend with that is basically a police report of your criminal record.
Yes, and again, there are legal provisions that when you come to the certificate of character itself, it's only valid within a specified period. After that, it is subject to the new one.
Yeah. So what the provisions are, might not be in a position to say, but there are laws, rules, and regulations governing it. But you are very right, and the point is well noted by the external auditors, and we improve to see a better nomenclature next time. But not all government officials are corrupt.
What I'm saying, that's why I said we've seen some.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Jame, you want to come?
Yes, I just want to remind them not to forget about the list of those organizations or government departments that owe you, because it will help us whenever they come here. At least we can try to put something to them so that they can pay. Okay, but when they pay, all what we are doing is just to standardize the whole system to ensure that at least whatever we are doing here reflect to the Gambian people. So on that note, definitely I will thank you for coming. Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Nja.
Taking us back to page 10, if we look at the observation, financial transactions with the Light Ministry, and it says status resolved. Meanwhile, it's still saying that the total payments on behalf of the ministry were fully charged to MDI's income statement as traveling expenses, yet they were not refunded. How can we say resolved? Was it an agreement that MDI was going to pay for that, or was refund expected?
To the external auditors, that is their comment.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, there was a disagreement on the point last year with the previous auditors. We don't want to get into what happened last year. The comment of management was this was refunded. The auditor said it was charged as an expense. Our audit covers 2020. So as far as we are concerned, for 2020, we have not seen an issue of that nature. That is why we said this issue has been resolved. And the comment we made is we have not noted any issue this year. What happened in 2019, we wouldn't be able to know. There was a disagreement on the point between the auditor and the management. So that's why we just had to comment on the current year situation. We haven't seen any issue on that.
So can the management confirm whether it was reported or not?
For the finance and admin management.
Yeah. This one has already been resolved, and then the money has been refunded to the institute.
Do you have evidence of that?
Okay, no problem.
When do we expect that?
I think even the current auditors we have told them that and then the amount has been included in our this year's account. That was previous.
Yeah. They do not want to involve the issues of data between you and the former external auditors. So for them, they are only concerned with the quality data. But since
You've said that it was refunded, as a supplementary question to the honorable member's question, can we have the evidence to that effect as an attachment during the submission of the relevant documentations we are expecting by next week, Thursday?
thank you.
And one more question, please, if I have permission.
Do you take that as the last?
I said one more. I didn't say last. I said one more. If anything comes up,
I'm requesting.
we owe it to our people to ask questions. So one more question.
I'm
But
requesting now.
okay, it might be granted. Okay, what I'm saying is that MDI have illustrated that they are struggling financially, and that government officials, institutions owe them. So is it the norm for MDI to be paying such amount for a minister's travel, and we hope it's not going to occur again?
Yeah, thank you very much. This issue actually is issue of concern for us, but the transaction was not conducted in vacuum. MDI was conducting a study to JIMFA, and the process, the officials at JIMFA confirmed and validated a specific period of time where the senior management was to be present, so that our senior management and policy leaders can meet them. So during that period, I think the government process of getting the funds and release for ministers was slow, and they might miss the time in JIMPA. So MDI undertook the effort to pre-finance the trip with the condition that it will be refunded, and it has been. So it's a one-off event, and we do not condone it because our finances will not even allow us to do that. Thank you. Huh? No, it's the ministry. It was. Yes. Yes.
Then at this juncture, what we will do is we allow the Deputy Director General and the Chairman Board of Directors to share some remarks. If there are any issues that you would like to bring.
We have still have some issues here about the this one here, page 11.
Allow me.
Okay.
I did open the floor.
Okay.
You still want the opportunity, right?
Yeah, I still want the.
I will open it once again.
Yeah.
But when we are done with that relevant section, we apply by the rules and close it. So it will be opened again till we exhaust all the questions from honorable members. But we also require respect when it is close to the board. So again, I will revert it back to you.
Yes, going back to page 11 here. Uh, During the year under review, the institution on the 20th November 2019 approved and paid 150,000 their payment voucher number as honorarium to certain members of staffs for their participation in preparing 2018 financial report because the accountant was sick, so couldn't do the job. Conspicuously, the same accountant and some members of the accounts department were paid part of the honorarium. So, was it resolved?
External auditors?
Yeah, it's similar to the issue of the pre-financing of the Nine Ministers trip. As far as we are concerned, in 2021, we have not seen an issue on that. What happened in 2019, we wouldn't want to get into that. But what I know is MDI normally pays honorarium to staff for certain activities. Okay. But an issue of this nature where the accountant was involved in benefiting from a payment, where he was or he should have been responsible for doing the work, we haven't seen a situation of that during our audit. Yeah, in 2020.
Then we refer the issue to the accountant. What was the status of that?
Mr. Chairman, may I allow the Deputy Director General to answer that, please?
Mr. Chair, as this matter relates to the year outside the audit period for the current auditor, this matter, what I can explain about why the accountant who was sick was paid, you would agree with me that the preparation of financial statement is a long process from the entries right down to the actual financial statement. This was a time that the accountant rather, was sick, but we had to recognize part of his input. And by looking at the amount he was paid, it was not at the same level with other staff members who were on the ground in the actual finalization of the financial statement. So he contributed towards the preparation before falling ill.
In accordance with the
And of course, these matters were responded to in the management letter accordingly.
Okay. In accordance with the audit agreement of the prior year, you would realize that what the previous external auditors were trying to express is the anomaly with regards to the entire operation.
So listening to the current external auditors, they are not saying that A, it is resolved, or B, it is not resolved, or C, this is how it was resolved, or D, this is why it wasn't resolved. They are simply saying, we do not want to get involved. But we are not seeing a replica of it in the current year. So now, the issue is this. Even though we recognize the fact that the preparation of financial statements are hectic, but this is the responsibility of the accountant. That's the responsibility of the accountant. So, can we conclude to say that the issue stands as it is and it has not been resolved? That is totally disregarding the opinion of the external auditor, because they don't want to be involved. So we would not involve them.
Mr. Chairman, if you look at the report, it's saying that his accountant was on sick leave, and then the who helped in preparing the account by then, was not directly working in the account. So then they have to even contact the accountant who was on sick leave to be able to make sure that certain things are put in place when he is already on sick leave. So these are some of the reasons why his name was even included on the. Normally, accountant is the one that responsible for preparing the financial statement. So the reason why this year collided with his sickness and he was on sick leave, this was the reason why this issue was raised and he was contacted when he was on sick leave.
This issue will be directed to the board chair and the deputy director. When staff are employed, obviously they will have specific responsibilities. But every organization would like to have staff who would be as flexible as possible. That's why, with the little we have in management, we know that outside the confines of your normal responsibilities, it is a prerogative of management to use your expertise in other diverse areas as and when they are needed. So the question is it in the policy of Management Development Institute to pay staff honorarium whenever they are assigned responsibilities which do not fall directly under their purview?
Mr. Chair, I will take that question since it's more to do with administration and operational. Yes, I can give you an example. When our lecturers, for instance, have to set questions or have to mark, normally these are things that are done outside their working hours. And looking at the voluminous work involved, they do receive some form of compensation or motivational, incentive. Equally, in this situation, the preparation of accounting financial statement involves overtime. It involves working outside the office hours, and this justifies such allowance. It's covered within our scheme. It's covered.
It's covered within the scheme.
Within the scheme, where you give additional responsibility. And please, in this situation, the accountant was sick. The person who's immediately the deputy to that accountant was on study leave, and there was the capacity of a head of department who could help. And with his added role, he had to come outside his working hours to be able to help. And such justifies the honorarium. And or on those basis, we had to give some honorarium or incentive for that additional rule carried out.
Yeah, I was just wondering because the mentioned, yes, at times they are overtime ones. So you look at somebody who there's always this accommodation of any order assigned. So I think that might fall on that. With the emphasis made by the management on the lack of financial resources, I think resources were not judiciously spent on that. Anyway, that's my opinion anyway.
Can I respond to that? If any other duties, but then also we have to be very, very fair to the staff who is assigned or appointed to carry out a specific responsibility. If you should shift that role and want to give added work, something that could have been hired for outside and have to be paid, and you have the expertism within, I think one have to understand some form of little remuneration for that additional or willingness to carry out a role that is not probably within the TOR of the person. So this was the justification on which the allowance was paid.
Thank you. Let's hear from the chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Honorable Chairperson. In the condition of service, the issue of honorarium is stated, and even in the case of civil service proper, we have put some criteria for payment of honorarium. Any task that requires extra time, that's beyond the official hours, like it may be part of your job, but suppose you are not able to finish it between 8 o'clock, 8 to 4, it will require extra time even to work during the weekends to complete. We normally consider paying honorarium to staff who may be involved in that kind of task. Yes, you may have, all of us have on our TOR or job description any other duty, and that may be assigned by your supervisor. But that's within the working hours. That is within between 8 to 4. If my boss said, I want you to take some jets to the airport, I want you to do any other thing aside of my normal responsibility, I do. But if going to the airport is going to take me extra hours, I have to be there for until 2 a.m. or even beyond, if I am considered for any additional remuneration, that is where the honorarium comes. If you set up a committee to do a task and they have to work beyond normal working hours, the terms of condition talk about the payment of honorarium to such people. So normally that's how we justify payment of honorarium. Normally in those kind of situations, we justify the payment of honorarium. Thank you.
Thank you. So saying it is accommodated in the service scheme?
Yes.
Not so.
Yes. In the conditions of service.
It's accommodated in the service scheme?
Yeah.
Okay. But you would all agree that
The accountant was on sick leave because the organization recognized the need that as a staff, his or her welfare should be of concern. Should the same accountant have the ability to perform such functions, should he be entitled to honorarium given the fact that he was on sick leave at the discretion of the organization? That question comes back to you.
Yeah, I would not. The explanation I thought was the fact that, in spite of the fact that he's away on sick leave, they still had to reach out to him to be able to clarify and put certain some issues together. Because they were not able to. They will not be able to understand all the issues that at hand. The accountant being away on sick leave, but he's accessible and he's supporting them in some way, giving them clarifications of issues where they require. So maybe on the basis of that, they think that yes, accountant also participated in the work despite he's sick, but they are able to still involve him in the preparation. So they made a consideration to give him something, but not actually to the same amount as those who are actually on the ground to do the work.
We are pondering over this issue and deliberating on it because we do not want it to surface again as a recurring item in your management level. So you will have to reach a conclusion. And for that level
we must gravitate to some extent of what is normal. Now, the accountant is sick. How do you qualify the payment? Do you qualify it as an overtime? How do you qualify it? Because he is not going to work. Mr. Fati, you want to come in?
Because I think the genesis of the payment is not fair. Okay. As we may know that account preparation is a process, and the process was started by the accountant. And middle way, or let's say less than quarter way through, he was severely sick, and this sickness do not allow him to be actively involved in the operation of the institute, so he was granted the leave. So another group of some people were added into the committee to assist, and generally account preparation of an institution as with a voluminous stakeholders of students, etc., it usually takes time. It do transcend beyond evening. Sometimes we'll be there until 11, sometimes 12. So based on that, we did not want to discount his initial effort that he had put in place to put the account preparation process on a start. So we were just merely applying a fair remuneration process for his effort that he has put in place in the initial preparation of the account. So that is why he was considered, not because he was outside and then consulted, brought in. When he was sick, he was totally out of the process, but the process started in his hand. So a good amount, about a quarter or more of the work was done under his purview. So that was why he was considered in the remuneration. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, what we will do is, since it is a 5-year audit observation, it will not deter us from considering these accounts or other things. But we will return to this point. The FPAC committee would highlight this point
and then keep it as a follow-up item. And then a later date of engagement will be scheduled and communicated to the management of MDI. And if need be, you might be invited on a specific date specifically for this, or the FPAC committee might come and have an interface with the management to know the circumstances surrounding this particular transaction so that it can be resolved once and for all with the appropriate remedial actions. Honorable members, do we have any further issues?
Since the scheme of service is subjected to review, so I will also request for them to furnish us with that scheme of service so that we can address these issues.
Thank you. Can we equally know that to have the scheme of service as well?
It will be provided. I just want to say that it's been recently reviewed, 2021. So we'll give you a copy, 4 copies of both. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further observations, honorable members?
No.
Okay. Then, in the absence of that,
we would like to say thank you to the board and management of the Management Development Institute, and then your inputs and contributions during the entire process, which started yesterday up till today, have been really valuable, and we really appreciate, the work that you are doing in that institution, by recognizing the fact that MDI is among one of those institutions who are near compliant now at 2020. So we would like to encourage you, and do expect that before the end of this year, you will also receive the audited financial statements for 2021, so that come next year, you will be fully compliant, whilst we are in 2023, you would only have to deal with 2022, and then you will be among the pace setters. At the end of the day, the rationale behind this exercise is not only on the deliberations as to what is highlighted either in the management letter or in the activity report, but is what have we taken as deliverables towards the improvement of the services. So that's why we'll urge the management of MDI, and also as a committee, we would like to tell you that we are committed to making sure that we enhance the operations of the Management Development Institute, because your role towards the development of this country is second to none. So we want to tell you that the Parliament is your house, this complex is your home, and we are partners in national development. So on that note, when I have an honorable member to move the motion for the adoption of the report of the National Council for Civic Education and the Management Development Institute as well, for their audited financial statements of 2020 together with the annual activity report. It is moved. Any seconder? It is moved and seconded that the financial statements of the Management Development Institute and the National Council for Civic Education be adopted. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. The financial statements and all relevant submissions from the Management Development Institute and NCCE have been adopted. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and you are kindly released.
Pass. Pass.
No. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Attendance staff. The attendance register.